Yo, 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 Soup Squad! It's your boy Nimbo Soup again. Today I'm flying out the P-47M, the American one. This is a premium vehicle that's only available at certain times throughout the year. Luckily, or maybe not so luckily, I'll get into that later, it was available the past 3 days, and I've heard really good things about it, so I decided to pick it up and fly it out for you guys. Just a fair warning, this video's gameplay is going to be a little bit different than you guys might be used to with my previous videos. Normally I show you guys longer games, I only play 2 or 3. This one's going to be probably 4 or 5 different games, and it's going to be more cut up, just in kind of a clip format. That's going to go along with the commentary talking about this plane and the matchmaker it unfortunately receives. I'm not going to be talking about the clips as much. I'm doing it like this because it's one of those situations where I'd much rather show you guys what it's really like and what you might experience for yourself if you decide to pick this thing up, versus playing 80 games to get an 8-kill game and be cool on YouTube. So, now that you can consider yourself warned, let's get into a little bit about the plane itself. This P-47 is by far the best P-47 in the game. Good climb, good turn, very fast so it's a good boom and zoomer. It gets an air brake to get yourself out of those compressy situations. Great armament, 850 cals, high velocity, lots of ammo. I really can't think of too many negatives about this plane itself. I mean, once you get going to 800 kilometers an hour, booming and zooming someone, of course you're going to compress a little bit, it'll be a little floaty and a little difficult to aim, but, I mean, who cares? Doesn't really matter. Any plane is going to do that. Plus, most planes can't get as fast as this plane can in a dive, so that's nice. And you've got the air brake, like I said, to get yourself out of it, so, again, doesn't really matter. Another very nice perk of this plane is that you really don't lose, like, any performance at altitude until you hit like 10,000 meters, which you'll probably never hit anyways, so it's very nice in that regard. The more observant among you guys might have noticed that at this point I've only been talking about the plane itself, which has almost no cons as far as I can tell. But if the plane itself isn't going to have any negatives, of course there's going to be negatives surrounding the matchmaker and how the games actually play out. Before we get into that, I need to commentate over this next clip here because you'll see. Anyways, we got a Ju-288 just took off from his airfield. Of course, I'm going to clean up the scum because that's what one must do against Ju-288s. Here we go. He's coming at me. I'd like to start shooting pretty early with these 50 cals, so I'll start shooting around 1 kilometer. He tries to turn, get a nice little critters on him. Apparently his central gear leg, even though I saw a fireball exploded off of his left wing. We got a 190 behind us and above us, never a good sign. 288's for some reason turning around, and he hits me and sets me on fire. Pretty unfortunate, theoretically. Focke-Wulf 190's trying to close the distance. I pitch it up. Apparently if you stall, it's more likely to put the fire out. I have no idea how true that actually is, so please don't quote me on that, but sometimes it works for me. Then I realize it's not a great idea to stall right in front of a 190, so I pitch it back down. Ju-288 goes down to his fuel fire, so that was nice. Usually that doesn't happen. Dodging this 190's shot, doing a little bit of a split S and a roll, making sure he can't get his guns onto me. I'm still on fire here, and I go into a dogfight with this guy. He's got more speed than me, so I do some turns, just avoid his nose, and I make him overshoot. And now he's out in front, and all I gotta do is get my guns on target. By the way, still on fire in case you didn't notice from the Doom music in the background. This was just too hilarious, man. I felt really bad for this guy, but at the same time, like, it's just hilarious, isn't it? I heard that apparently this is one of the old flight models, which means it's a really funky flight model and damage model, and it's basically impossible to die from being set on fire. You'll just put them out. Allegedly. Again, I haven't played too many games in this thing, and I get set on fire in very few of them, but from what I hear, it's very difficult to die from just a fire. I was pretty afraid from dying from this fire at any instant, so I just absolutely hosed that 190 down. I don't need to hear about it in the comments. And we finally got it done. Game over, GG, 5 kills and a clutch, and now the fire finally goes out. Bruh. Alright, now that the shenanigans are over with, where were we? Oh yeah, why this fantastic plane actually suffers. first, there's the matchmaker. I mean, we all know and love the 6v6s with 4 Ju-288s on the enemy team. I feel like I don't really need to explain that. If I do, I'll give you the quick version of it, I guess. This thing will face 6v6 games where the entire enemy team is basically Ju-288s and maybe a fighter if they're lucky. It's really annoying to face those teams. I mean, it's free kills on the 288s, of course, but I'm actually trying to get into some captivating dogfights. I don't know about you. Not to mention that it's going to be an absolute struggle to get more than like 1 or 2 kills in those games because your team is probably going to be mostly fighters, P-51Hs, F-82s with air spawns that will probably reach the 288s before you do. And then there's also the dilemma of immediately rushing for the Ju-288s to pick up some free kills and then just making yourself an easy target for the 1 or 2 fighters that are on the enemy team. And from my games, most of the time, even if you don't get a 6v6, it's probably going to be a mixed matchmaker, which, don't get me wrong, that's way better than a 6v6, but at the same time, like, pretty annoying. I don't know, I'm just not a fan of mixed matches. I don't know about you guys. I'm going to talk about how I recommend playing this thing in a little bit, which will impact what I'm about to say, but realistically, there's only like probably 3 or 4 planes I'm actually afraid of in a dogfight. And if you get into a mixed match, you're going to be facing most of them on one team, obviously. Maybe that's the reason for it. Nimbo can't just dog on anyone he wants to. Still annoying though. I feel like that's not a reason for it not to annoy you. You know what I mean? And before we move on from the annoying matchmaker, let me just say real quick that I have no idea what the reason for it is, whether it's not enough people playing the Axis countries at this BR, a spam of 288s at this BR, probably likely. To be quite honest with you, I really don't care what the reason for it is. This is just how it unfortunately is, and whatever the reason might be, that's up to Gaijin to determine and hopefully fix. I'm not going to get my hopes up too high on that one. By the way, I'm going to butt in here and say that the ending of this match made me laugh so hard. All my teammates crashing and getting killed by AAA. It was really funny. Sorry if the audio was a little bit loud, but it had to be showed. Moving on from the matchmaker, let's talk about how to play this thing and how that contributes to your suffering a little bit. So, being a P-47, I highly recommend trying to boom and zoom people. Of course, this thing is a great dogfighter, but why would you do that? You're a P-47. Just go boom and zoom and win the game. Of course though, even with a pretty good to really good climb rate on this thing, what does that require? Side climbing. Something that literally nobody does, and it makes me sad. Like, honestly, really sad. Please side climb. It doesn't even have to be a lot in this thing at all, since your climb rate is good. Just go off a little bit to the side so you're not flying straight into the enemies. But side climbing presents an issue because since nobody else does it, you'll probably miss out on all of the action. And it goes either one of 2 ways. The first way, your team cleans up all the enemies, and by the time you're ready to boom and zoom people, they're all dead and there's nobody left to boom and zoom. Or your team all dies and it's just you versus 10 enemies and you have to clutch the match. Which honestly is more fun than getting 1 kill per game, but still, it's very annoying. Like I've been saying, fantastic plane. If I had to choose a plane to try to clutch in, it would definitely be this one. But at a certain point, there's just nothing you can do against that many enemies, and having to clutch every other game in between the games where the entire enemy team just dies immediately and you don't get any kills, it gets very frustrating. Speaking of frustrating, I hate to be toxic here, but I kinda just absolutely destroyed this 152 in a dogfight, and the tickets bleed and the game's already over. Epic 6v6 matchmaking. You guys know me, I try to be at least more of a chill player. I try not to get too frustrated at this game, so for me to say that, I feel like that's a pretty big deal. Everyone that watches the streams, be quiet. The last thing I kinda want to talk about / clarify here is that I'm not at all trying to say that you won't have any fun in this thing. It's just kind of rare for my playstyle. Personally, I like to get a lot of kills, be involved in some fun dogfights, you know, that type of stuff. And with this matchmaker and the way that the matches actually develop at this BR, it's kinda rare. But every now and then, once in a blue moon, when you do get matches that are not plagued by match development or matchmaking issues with 6v6s, they can be some of the most fun matches you've ever played in this thing, at least, again, according to my playstyle. The thing is though, for that to happen, not only do you need a good matchmaker, but you need to have some smart enemies and teammates so that all your teammates don't just die or immediately take all of the kills on the enemy team as you're side climbing and trying to get into a good spot. Of course, you could play it not side climbing, just climbing straight in, but in all likelihood you'll probably just get head-on by someone, or someone will be higher up than you and the boom and zoomer will turn into the boom and zoomed. It's not as fun. Speaking of head-ons, you are kind of a head-on machine with 8 high-velocity 50 cals, but at the same time, I really don't like to rely on head-ons to have fun in games. A lot of times, it's basically up to chance who comes out victorious in the head-on. I mean, of course, you can shoot early and dodge early and try to avoid it, but it's not a good thing to rely on. And yes, you did just watch me take a couple of head-ons in the gameplays. At this point, I was so fed up with only getting like 1 or 2 kill games, I was just bored. So I took some head-ons and luckily came out on top so I could show you guys. And now, for the question that I'm sure you've all been waiting for, is this thing worth picking up for yourself? Short answer, I unfortunately have to say no. At 6,000 golden eagles, I feel like it's just too much of a cost to just get into games you aren't really going to enjoy most of the time. By the way, excuse me as I absolutely hose this bomber down for making this match take too long. And it really breaks my heart because, just to reiterate, if I haven't already made it clear enough, that is at no fault of this plane's self. It has everything to do with the matchmaker and how matches actually end up playing out. The plane is absolutely fantastic, and every once in a blue moon, you will get into those matches that are some of the most fun matches in this game. But like I said, every once in a blue moon, and I feel like 6,000 golden eagles is just too much for that. Now, if you're an absolute whale and 6,000 golden eagles is nothing to you, then I do recommend picking this thing up, because it is worth the fun you have every once in a while. Just probably not for the average War Thunder player. One last closing thought here since we're back in the hangar. This skin is one of the coolest skins in the game in my opinion, especially not having to pay for it. I mean, obviously the 6,000 golden eagles, but you don't have to buy a separate skin here is my point. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out on my future content. That being said, you all know the deal. This is Nimbo Soup. Nimbo signing out. Peace out, fellas.